Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. As an introductory video, I'm going to go through all the motorcycles I've ever had, and you'll see that I've had a little bit of everything out there. And luckily I'm organized enough where I have at least one picture of every motorcycle I've ever had. So I think it was around 1976 or so, 1977, my dad came home with this little orange lawnmower bike with a Tecumseh engine on it. He told me to go out to the garage to get something, forget what he told me to get, and it was sitting there and I wasn't sure if it was mine. I was very excited, and yes, it was mine, and I rode the hell out of that bike. Loved it every chance I could get. I had some fields I could ride in, and some trails and stuff, and I rode that every chance I could get. And then a few years later, again, he showed up with a Suzuki 75 dirt bike, which I was incredibly excited for. My first, real motorcycle, get away from the lawnmower engine bike that I had. And again, I rode that every chance I could get. We had some fields and some dirt piles, and rode that as much as I could possibly ride it. And then had that for quite a few years. It stopped running, kind of got put away. And then 1987 or so, I got my motorcycle license, and my dad had this Yamaha DS6 1970 that he had originally bought with the hopes of teaching my mother how to ride, and that didn't work out so well. She didn't like riding it. I think she crashed it into the bushes, but he continued to ride it. He enjoyed it. Had a friend that he would ride with once in a while. So that kind of sat in the garage until I got my motorcycle license, and I put it back on the road, and that was awesome. I finally got to ride on the road. I loved riding on the road, and that bike was great. It was a little 250, two-stroke, so it had some get up and go. And I rode that until one of the cylinders stopped working. I didn't really wrench much back then. Didn't know how to fix it, figured it was a big deal, ended up giving that bike away, put it on the curb, and someone took it. Hopefully it had some life after that. Hopefully someone fixed it. And then 1988 or so, senior in high school, I got a Kawasaki KZ550. Pretty cheap deal. It was a decent bike. I think I paid $400 for it. Had some issues, but it ran really well, and finally I had something I can actually get on the highway with and get up to speed. And that was a fun bike. I don't know if I appreciated it at the time as much as I should have, because I think I really wanted a Harley cruiser at the time. Grew up in the 80s, that's what everyone wanted. But I had that KZ550 for a few years, and then needed money for a trip, and I sold the bike to a friend of mine, and he really enjoyed it too. So that was the end of the KZ550. Around 1989 or so, my friend Ed had this Yamaha XS650 sitting in his garage that he had kind of crashed a little bit and hadn't touched it in years. And I said, well, let me buy it off you. So I think we agreed on $200. I paid him $100, never got around to paying him the rest. Sorry, Ed. But it was probably worth the $100. Got it running, always had carburetor issues, never really got it running great. But that's a classic bike. I mean, people really love those old XS650s. And again, I didn't appreciate it at the time because, I wanted the limited version, which was more of a cruiser style. But, it was fun. I had a great time on that bike, eventually sold it to a friend, and I think they put the work into it and got it much more up to speed. And then I didn't have a bike for a while, and then around 1997 or so, I picked up a 1990 BMW K75 RT. The K75s were the block engines, and it was a 3-cylinder engine, which they said was much smoother than the K100, which was a 4-cylinder. And that was, again, a step up for me. Finally get on the highway, get up to 100. The thing was very smooth. Could do anything with it. It was an RT, which was the racing touring model, which had a big fairing on the front, which I didn't love. I would rather have the S. Had the side bags, but that was a big step up for me, and I enjoyed that K75 for a while. Then 1999, I found this Triumph chopper online on eBay. I was out in California, and I had it shipped to New York. And early days of the internet, there was a lot of faith where I put my money into this iEscrow account. I trusted that he was going to ship it. He trusted that he would get the money, and it wasn't the smoothest transaction, but it all worked out in the end. I got the bike. It took a month or two to get the bike to me, and when I found that bike, I thought it was my dream bike. I loved the look of that Triumph chopper. It was everything I ever wanted. And started riding it and realized it was terrible bike to ride. Those rigid bolt-on hardtails of the Triumphs, I think it was the early mid-60s one, 66, 67, and it ran okay, but no front brake. The frame was extended, so the chain was really long and would flop around. The shifter was on the other side. It was just not a fun bike to ride. So I had that for a little while, along with the BMW K75, and then I sold the chopper to someone local, again on eBay, and got rid of that. But I always loved that bike. Then I also picked up, around 2000, a 76 Vespa 150 Super. What a great little scooter that was. It had been restored. Everything worked great on it. It was a shift scooter, so it had, I think, 3 gears. But it was 150, so a 2-stroke, so it got up and went. And I enjoyed that for a while, and I had that along with, again, with the BMW, and would ride both of them. And then we had kids, and we decided to move, so I sold everything. Didn't have a bike for a few years, and then decided, let me try a Harley, because growing up in the 80s, I always wanted a Harley. So I picked up a 2003 Harley Super Glide Sport, which in the Harley world is a smaller Harley. But I don't think I appreciated it at the time. It felt heavy. It didn't feel good on the highway. It was a nice looking bike. So I think I kept that a year and a half, maybe 2 years. Traded that to someone local for a 2004 BMW R1150R. And I thought this was, my dream bike. Again, I always think every bike I buy is my dream bike. And rode that for a while. But it was, you couldn't really customize it. It was what it was. It was a smooth bike, but the foot pegs were very high. I'd get leg cramps. It just wasn't the bike for me. As you'll see, I keep on thinking that I'm going to like BMWs, and they don't always work out. So I got rid of the BMW R1150R on eBay. We shipped it somewhere. I forget where it went. Didn't sell it for much. Kind of lost money on that bike. But then it allowed me to get my 2007 Triumph Bonneville T100. It's in 2007, and that was around 2014 that I picked that up. And I still have that bike. I love that bike. I did a lot of modifications to it. I painted it, put a lot of aftermarket stuff on it, and it just rides so smooth. It's a great beginner's bike for anyone. I think it's just a motorcycle. There's nothing that special about it. It just runs really well, and it's been incredibly reliable. And I don't know how long I'll have it, but I still have it, and it's 8, 9 years later. And then my wife decided, she would like a scooter to drive to work so she could park in town much easier. And so I picked up a Yamaha Zuma 50 two-stroke for about $700, and she didn't take on to it that much. She rode it a little bit. We did some rides. I don't know if she got her permit. Maybe she got her permit. But she decided she didn't like it. But I really liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun. And then I saw the same thing, a Yamaha Zuma 125 come up locally and had like 300 miles on it. I was like, let me upgrade, because with the 125 I can actually get out of town. I can get on, you know, roads that'll take me wherever I want to go. So I picked up that 125. It was almost new, and I still have that, and I enjoy it. My kids have started to ride it, and those little scooters are a lot of fun, especially if you're just going into town to pick up food or something. Great little scooter, and I don't know if I'll ever get rid of that. And then in 2018, I find another Yamaha DS6 252 stroke online, and it's over in Vermont, $300, needs a lot of work. So I said, oh my God, that's the same bike that I had in high school. Let me go grab that. So with my supportive wife, said, go get it. So I've been working on that for 4 years now, 5 years, and it's basically together. Everything's there. The points still have to be worked out, and the carburetor still have to be worked out, but the entire motor was redone, and it's all together, and it's just a matter of, you know, getting the motivation to finish that project. But it came out really beautiful, had everything painted, a lot of new parts, so that should be ready to go within the next year. I hope hopefully it's running. And then I spot online in 2019 this BMW R1100S Boxer Cup edition. Just a gorgeous bike. Again, I'm thinking at some point I'm going to like BMWs, and maybe this is the one that I'm really going to like. So I got it December. I didn't even hear it running. Got a really good deal on it. Brought it home, raised the handlebars, lowered the foot pegs, did some other stuff to it. Rode it a lot that next summer. It was a great bike. It took some long trips on it, great on the highway. But what I learned finally, or realized finally, is that BMWs have a very high center of gravity. They're very tall, and I don't think I like that. I think I like a much lower center of gravity. So sold the Boxer Cup at a slight, you know, profit, and then said, you know, I had the money. I was like, let me try a Harley Sportster. So I found this 2001 Sportster. I figured maybe I just like the smaller ones, and I really liked it. Did some modifications to that. Had the tank painted. Rode it quite a bit. Didn't have it for very long. Decided to upgrade to a newer Sportster. So I fell in love with the Harley 48s. Beautiful bikes, bobber style, Sportster 1200, and I just loved it. So all last summer, I think I rode about 3,000 or 4,000 miles on this thing, and realized I really like the forward controls. I like being low, and I like the forward controls, and I could just ride for days on that thing. But the tank was 2.2 gallons, and at about 60 miles, the light would come on. And maybe you had till 80. I think I ran it dry one day and it got to 87 miles, but that's nothing. So every ride I'd have to fill up. Sometimes I'd fill up 2 times. One ride I had to fill up 3 times. And it just becomes a burden, and it just didn't have the suspension for the highway. I mean, it was fine on the highway, you know, it had plenty of power, plenty of speed, but the suspension just wasn't there. So a couple months ago, I decided, let me trade in the 48. Still new, you know, looked new, low miles. So I picked up a 2016 Harley Softail Slim. After much research, didn't quite know what Harley I wanted. I thought I wanted a street bob, but the problem with the street bobs is anything 2017 or older was a Dyna. And why get a Dyna when you could get a Softail, much better suspension. And the newer Street Bobs had, again, a small tank on it. They put a 3.5 gallon tank on the Street Bobs with the Dyna, with the Softail. And you know, why get a 3.5 gallon when I can get a 5 gallon? So, you know, I finally found this Softail Slim, which had everything I wanted. Had the spoke wheels, had the big front tire, was stripped down. Just a simple bike with the 5 gallon tank and the Softail, you know, suspension. And so I popped on it, and hopefully this summer will be awesome. I'm hoping to do some longer trips, and when the time comes, I'll post a video about the Softail Slim and what I like about it, and do some riding on it. And so as you can see, I've had a little bit of every kind of bike out there, and I think my riding style's changed, and now I want to go further. I want to, you know, do some highway riding, and I want to go longer distances. So looking forward to a summer with the Softail Slim, and I will do a video on that. I will do a video on the Triumph, and probably one on the scooter, and maybe a little show of the old 1970 Yamaha DS6, and maybe I'll get that running. So welcome to my channel, and hopefully I'll be posting more videos as riding season comes on. Thanks.